Everybody's wondering what Elon Musk has been up to these past 6 weeks. I've had my own business for 30 years and I did some contracting before that. And Elon is just looking at the basics so far. The purchase order system. Did we place an order? Do we need the goods? Did we get an invoice? Did we pay the invoice? Did we try to pay the invoice again? Is this something we need? That's all. And then he's asked people to say, are you at work? I did work for the government of Tanzania in 1999, where they knew they had 1.2 million employees, but they were paying 1.5 million employees, and they didn't know who the 300,000 ghost employees were. So they're putting in a huge HR system. Maybe they should have just sent an email to everybody, except there weren't emails in those days like we have today. I don't think it's such a problem for me to get an email from my client and say, what did you do today? As it is, I have a meeting with them every single day. This is what I did yesterday. It's not that difficult today also with project tracking systems to see what I'm doing because I check my daily work into the version control system. Isn't it fair for someone to know what their employees are doing? Isn't it fair for someone to know that they're purchasing what they need, that the invoice matches the purchase order, and that the goods are not inflated? One of the things that Elon Musk is really, really good at is knowing what things cost. And that's how he's built his empire. Vertical integration. He would buy a chair for a car, and let's suppose the chair cost $200. Then he would say to his people, take this chair apart and tell me what the components of the chair cost. And they would take the chair apart and they'd measure the leather, and they'd measure the plastic, and they'd measure the metal, and they'd measure all the different materials, and they'd say, the cost of the chair is $35. Then Elon Musk would say, okay, how much would it cost us to make one of these chairs? And they would say it's going to cost $5,000. And he would say, well, make one. And they would make one chair. And that would be a lot more than just buying the chair from the third-party supplier. But it would give them an idea of how long it took to make the chair manually. And then they would work out how long would it take to make the chair automatically, or with humans and with robots. And maybe they would be able to make the chair for $100. And they would therefore save $100 on the manufacture of the chair. And he's done this with rocket travel. He said it costs NASA, say, $100 million. I don't know what it costs. Just let's say $100 million to put a missile into space, a spaceship, whatever it is, a rocket. But the actual cost of the materials is $10 million. But the problem with NASA is NASA put rockets into space 30 years ago, and they're trying to recover all those costs. Instead of saying those are sunk costs, we don't need to recover those costs anymore. We need to write off those costs and we need to progress. When you do something the first time, it costs a lot of money. A lot of money. And when you do it the second time, it's cheaper. The third time, it's cheaper. The 100th time, the 200th time, the 1,000th time. Each time you do it, it gets cheaper. It's called the learning curve. And those first experiments are sunk costs. We write them off. We don't try and recover our investment in those first ones. That's the learning part. That's the piece that the capitalist has to do. They've got to say, I'm going to take $1,000, or in Elon's case, I'm going to take $1 billion, and I'm going to see if I can build a rocket engine. And if you look at his new rocket engines compared to the ones that he made 20 years ago, they look completely different. They've learned. And they're not trying to recover the cost of those 20-odd rocket engines. They're building more of the modern rocket engines and using those to put spaceships into orbit, to put satellites into orbit, because that's how the learning curve works. So Elon is doing 2 or 3 fundamental things. And I support that as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. I want to know, am I ordering the things I need? Are they costing what they need to cost? Am I getting an invoice that matches a purchase order? Have I paid the invoice already? If not, I must pay it, and I mustn't pay it a second time. Is there a middleman? Do I need the middleman? Does the middleman need to be involved? Michael Dell, 30, 40 years ago, said, we don't need a middleman. And so he started selling direct. Someone told me the other day that one of the reasons why the cost of living is so high in America is because there's now a middleman buying the Dell computer and selling it. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds reasonable. We need a new Michael Dell version 2, to go and do again what he did. Make things, sell them directly to consumers. We need to look at what things really cost today using modern materials, modern science, using robotics and AI together with humans. AI and robotics cannot replace humans. They can never replace humans. They can look intelligent, but they're not intelligent at all. They're just able to take vast amounts of data and extrapolate things. But they can't tell if things are related to each other or not. Some of the things they can, but that's only because a human had said this extrapolates or not. And then Elon wants to know, are you at your desk? One thing I disagree with Elon on is that I like working from home. I like to say my office is at my house. I moved my office to my house in 2002, and the amount of money that I've saved on commuting, the amount of money that I've saved on cars, the amount of money that I've saved on all those things allows me to have 2 or 3 hours extra a day. It allows me to be de-stressed. It allows me to be 60 years old and maybe look 40 years old. It allows me to get much more done. It allows me to say at 2 o'clock, hey, I'm not doing anything constructive today. I'm going to go out and have coffee with a friend. I'm going to come back at 6 and work till 8 or till 10. I'm still going to do my 8 or 10 hours work a day, but I'm just going to do it when I can do it. Obviously, if I've got a meeting at 3, I've got to be at the meeting. But if I don't have a meeting, then why shouldn't I go out and do what I need to do? So that's one thing we're going to disagree with. I don't agree with everything he does. I don't agree with everything Donald Trump does. But I agree with a lot of what they're doing. I agree that men should be men and women should be women. I agree that men should play in men's sports and women should play at women's sports. I agree that everybody should be part of society, regardless of their race, their color, their creed, their religion, where they're from. We should have liberty, equality, fraternity, all for one, one for all. Coming back to the beginning, is our purchase order system working? Are we saving money where we can save money? Can we make things on site? Can we make things in America? In this case, can we make things in South Africa? Can we do vertical integration, just like Henry Ford did, where he built cars and his power stations were part of his factories? He didn't buy power from a third party. He owned the power station. Yes, one can say in those days he needed to own the power station because the power ran pulleys and the pulleys ran into the factory, which ran conveyors. They didn't need the kind of electrical system we have today because they had direct power running production lines directly from rotating machinery in the power station. But Henry Ford believed in vertical integration. And I like vertical integration as much as possible. Outsourcing is important, but vertical integration works in many cases. And just-in-time is brittle. Just-in-time is where my suppliers hold stock, or they've got product, or they make it just in time for me to use. But just-in-time is brittle. When something goes wrong, if there's load shedding, if a ship sinks, if something happens on the way, it might be 3 months before I can build my car or my rocket or whatever I happen to be doing, because a just-in-time system is brittle. Elon Musk understands that. Is Elon Musk my hero? Yes, he's one of my heroes. I like what he does. I like the way he thinks. I think that we should look and say, do things need to cost what they cost? In the 1950s, my gran lived in Bantry Bay in Cape Town. It was a poor suburb in those days. Today it's one of the most wealthy suburbs. She made her own electricity. She made her own heat. She made her own water. She had her own sewerage. And then the council came along and said, we can provide these things for you cheaper than you can provide them. And she said, okay. What she didn't take account of is that 50 years later, it would cost 5 times more than if she just carried on making it herself. And the same thing happened with South African breweries, who used to make steam to make beer. And then Eskom came along and said, why don't we provide you with electricity to make steam? And then they did a calculation and they worked out that it was costing, say, 20 cents a kilowatt hour for the steam. And so Eskom would provide the 15 cents a kilowatt hour. And everything was great for 20, 30 years. And then Eskom started pushing up the prices for South African breweries. And South African breweries need to relook at their sources of electricity. Maybe they need to start making their own steam again 50 years later, because government spending is out of control. And if spending is out of control, we need to get it under control. And how do we get it under control? We measure things. If we measure things, we can get them under control. So this is David the businessman, David the entrepreneur, David the person. I've spent a lot of money on things, learning how to do things. And I've also tried to save money in the long run. Okay, feel free to ask questions. Like, subscribe, share. See you next time.